First watch, rewatch, The Wire, season 1, episode 12, cleaning up.
Cleaning up, and there was a lot of cleaning up to do this week.
A lot of cleaning up. We're getting close to the end. The penultimate.
Yeah, penultimate. And this episode was intense. There was a lot of intense scenes and a lot of things going on.
Yes. I'm very excited to get through this season with you. So let's just get right into it, I guess. There was a lot of happening. So we're coming off of, again, Kima's still in the hospital fighting for her life. And we also find out that McNulty here has not yet visited Greg's hospital.
Right.
And
first time. Mm-hmm.
Daniels confronts him and says, hey, you gotta go see her, and he's not really into it. And he confesses to Daniels that this whole thing was about him the whole time. And this had nothing to do with, the right thing or getting Avon and Stringer, that this was about him showing everyone how smart he was. And Daniels just, without hesitation, is like, we all knew that. You weren't fooling anybody. And he tells him that Daniels tells McNulty, regardless of how you feel about the case now, and McNulty pretty much says that Burrell and Rawls, they were all right. This means nothing. Daniel says now it means something because they shot a police, and we can't let that go. Now we've got to finish this.
It's interesting how they've, painted McNulty into the situation where now he's, looking for some sort of inspiration to go on. Like he's at the end of his rope. And it's interesting because he got everything started. So. Mm-hmm.
So we go to our credits and we got our quote. This is me, yo, right here from WALLACE. I think our first quote from WALLACE.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So at any point, so I guess really the biggest things besides Kima getting shot is that the raid happened, the dope on the table, and the way that things kind of finished up with that was that they were forced to give up the location of the stash house. And so they basically cleaned out the Barksdale organization as far as supply. Anything that they had warrants on, they raided.
Yeah, so the towers are dry, the pit's dry, everything's running out of, and there's no re-up coming.
So that is what D'Angelo and Bodie, and again, D'Angelo very out of the loop, him and Bodie waiting on a re-up or something to happen. They're just kind of waiting on instruction, I guess. And Stringer comes to the pit and basically lets everyone know, like, we are done. Everything that we used to be doing, we are not doing that anymore. Get rid of all your pagers, takes the pagers from all the crew, and nobody now will have communication outside of Bodie and D'Angelo, who will get cell phones with his number only.
How do you feel about Bodie and D'Angelo being the two, I guess, lieutenants of that area? Because I know for a long time you've talked about this whole season about how D'Angelo's not smart. So I'm curious what you think about Stringer putting those two in charge.
Well, I think for them, until they have the later conversation with Levy, I don't think that they've started to wonder about D'Angelo. I don't think they've started to wonder about anything outside of they must be listening to the payphones and our pagers because they got the main stash. They know everything. So how would you get that information? So I think at this point, their only concern and their freak out is we need to limit the amount of communication. And Stringer tells them, you go to you use the phones just to set up a meet. You go to the meet and you sit there. You don't talk on the phones. No phones. Nobody gets a phone.
Right.
So I think he gives them a few numbers, Stringer's number, a number for re-up, and a number for muscle, and that's it.
Can we talk about that scene a little bit where Stringer pulled up and Bodie's like, yo, what up, String? And then Stringer doesn't even acknowledge him.
Yeah, you really learn about, Stringer in that sense, how tense it is for him. And I think also when you contrast it to how the episode ended with Bodie and Stringer, the manipulative mindset of Stringer.
Yeah, he has to earn his respect. Yeah, you don't just get the dap for me for existing.
Or at this point, all he's taking what he wants from Bodie, and at this point, he doesn't need anything from Bodie other than to listen to what he's going to tell him to do. Versus later on, he's got a big ask for Bodie later on. So we go to Freeman, and he's got the actual, I guess, the police department to pay for contacts for Chardine.
Is that what he did? He got them to pay for it?
I guess so. He says compliments of I think the Baltimore police department.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
And they're putting drops in her eyes, and she says, you're all clear, and he says, well, what, or you're all in focus. And Freeman says, what man wouldn't be? He's definitely laying it on. And Herc and Sidnor are
Observing.
Carver is out now on in-service training.
Mm-hmm.
Herc is back full time in the office. So, yeah, they're eyeing up this whole thing with Chardine. And Prez is apparently looking at state finance reports, Freeman says. And so even though the wire is dead because they're not using any phones, the detail is still doing some stuff, namely Freeman and Prez.
Yeah, for sure. They're looking into the money.
And we get a quick jump over to Avon, and he's mad. And this is when he and Stringer are with Levy, and Levy is telling them basically that they need to look to see where they're weak and where they need to clean things up. And this is the moment when they start to try and retrace when things started to go awry, when things started to go sideways. And they pinpoint that moment to when D'Angelo beat the murder charge.
Yeah, and they kind of see that as, without saying it, they see that as a catalyst for what caused all the police activity in their world. So,
which takes you back to what they originally thought episodes ago when they thought the pit had a snitch in the first place, because so many things were happening around the pit and D'Angelo's crew that it just seemed too coincidental. Now they're coming to this conclusion that things all started when D'Angelo came back home, which has them now thinking about everyone involved with not only the pit, but also the murder case, which Levy says the less I hear, the better. But they mention the witness, the female security guard that testified, they paid her off, but she could still hurt him. And I think Levy says that anyone that's out there that can hurt you is still in play. That who knows what the police could do to turn someone against them.
right.
So it's funny. He even started making a list for them. Any thoughts about Levy in general and his involvement?
No, nothing in particular. He just seems like a lawyer. But I do think that scene was really interesting, just for them to, not only for themselves, but for us, the viewer, to lay out all the open wounds of the organization that can be exploited. So,
yeah, they do confirm that Little Man is dead. That
was a key point. Yeah, because I wasn't sure, and then Avon confirmed 100% that Little Man is gone.
He's no longer a problem. He was a problem, and basically that everyone else that's involved, Weebay, they assume is going to get arrested, but that everyone involved is going to stand tall, and there's not going to be a problem with anyone that's directly involved with jail time.
Bird's already locked up, right?
Bird's already locked up, but he's already, he's been standing tall, so they have no reason to think that he's going to be a problem. Weebay, they've known for a very long time, so they feel good about whenever he should get arrested, that he's going to stand tall. And Savino's already been locked up, and he's doing his time, so they're not worried about anyone else. So Burrell now and Major Bobby Reed, who's just kind of hanging in the background, are basically laying out the law to Daniels and telling him what they expect from him. And it's almost like it's a new day in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. Burrell seems chipper almost. It seems so bright in his office. And he's telling Daniels that the detail is essentially done. And Daniels is saying that he's going to continue to monitor. He's going to continue to keep the detail going while he still has open wires, even if there's nothing on the wires.
Right. And Burrell asked him for, it says he's basically going to take his men back and put them back in their departments.
Right. He said, I gave you the men, I'll take them. And asked them, why don't you tell me? It's almost like a callback to what Freeman was telling McNulty when they ask you where you want to go, don't say anything. And so he asked, why don't you give me your suggestion of who you'd like to send back? And so he says nothing. I have no preference or something like that. And Burrell, stupidly, because he has no idea what's going on with the case, leaves the two most influential cops on the case, Freeman and Presbolewski, who he assumes are still this old man who is just from the pawn shop, and Presbolewski a total fuck up.
Now, did you catch the smile that Daniels had that he was trying to fight back? Okay, because it was good.
Yeah, he knew right away. He knew that he's got to win because he's got the cops that can help take this investigation, as we are going to find out more in this episode, further into where they really think the problem lies.
Now, my question is, does that mean even though does McNulty go back to homicide? Is that what that means too? Because he didn't say you get to keep McNulty.
Yeah, I guess they have to figure out the others. I guess they're leaving. Was there anyone else that they left off of there? I mean, he didn't mention Santangelo, right, specifically, but we do see Santangelo take off.
Yeah, we see Santangelo go back. We see Sidnor go back later. So I just assume everybody but Prez and Freeman.
I think that's my assumption is that everyone else is going to go back. But I think they did that specifically to make mention that Freeman and Prez are going to stay no matter what.
Yeah.
So the other thing is I wanted to know is just about the whole idea as far as this feeling of like it's done. That's kind of what he tells him, like, you did a good job. And they're almost praising him with like promise of promotion.
Yeah, for sure. They're talking about that major position that's open.
But nothing's been done yet.
It's the coke on the table is all that matters to them. That's done. That's a win for them. So with that and then a couple of arrests to clean it up on the back end, that's all they need to prove their point.
I guess the plot that's going to carry out the story that's going to lead to the legal action has nothing to do with what they've got going on right now. At this point, they have dope, but they haven't arrested Avon or Stringer or anyone like that. They haven't answered for Kima Greggs being shot.
Nope.
And Burrell just seems to be completely off of that because, like you said, the dope on the table.
Yep. Yeah. He got his win, and that's really all that matters to him. Yep.
State's attorney meets with Rhonda Perlman.
I thought this was going to be about Levy automatically, so I was a little surprised where this went.
Right, because last we saw her with Levy, she was a victim of McNulty basically blackmailing or extorting Maurice Levy, and she said, this is going to fuck up my career. And so now her boss, her boss now calling her in, and she's hit with blindsided completely. And he is giving up money that he is saying he doesn't know where it came from, but he's gotten wind now that the detail, and it's mainly Freeman and Prez, we know, has been looking into campaign finance contributions. And he doesn't want there to be any confusion that he's in bed with somebody crooked or any person of interest, and he doesn't know those people. And so he has no reason to take that money, and he's giving it back. And Rhonda is trying to basically, she is blindsided, but she's trying to make it as clear as possible that this was not with her consent or knowledge. And he even says, you got blindsided too, or something like that. And she's scared.
Yeah, she's scared shitless. So she does not know why they called her in and why they're giving her back this money, but she knows that this detail is doing something that she had no idea was going on.
Stringer and Avon call in D'Angelo into the office to ask about Wallace, the boy, because I guess the word is out that Wallace was having a problem with finding Brandon like that and hasn't been right since. It was kind of the word all over. It was definitely the word on the wire, which is what led McNulty to him. And Wallace has been gone since then, we know. And so Stringer asks and Avon asks D'Angelo, where is Wallace or the boy? And D'Angelo won't give him up in any way. Tells them that he's out the game. You don't have to worry about him. And they're a little bit stern with him. And D'Angelo tells him, just let the boy be. Avon, just let the boy be.
Now, I know we're going to talk about it in more detail when we get to the scenes later on, but in my mind, Stringer, because of what we see later with McNulty and Daniel showing up at Orlando's, it didn't seem like Stringer knew the fate of Wallace and what happened. It didn't seem like he was aware. But let's keep going. We'll talk about it when we get there. But this scene reminded me that, he's kind of talking about where's the boy, because in my head, off camera, he finished that list of all their loose ends, and Wallace was on there because Wallace was there face to face telling him to go kill Brandon or tell him where Brandon was to go get him killed, etc. So, so it's interesting that Stringer is aware that Wallace is a loose end for him specifically and then an accessory for a murder he committed.
Mm. It's a good point that really is the one thing that's holding Stringer in trouble.
Yeah.
So it's very tense, and it's really the most tense it's ever been between D'Angelo and Avon at this point. We've talked a few times during different times when Stringer's been a little bit shady, or Avon's given like these speeches that under normal circumstances of Hollywood talk or the way things play out in movies and TV show, it would be threatening. But we've talked about how it's been anything but threatening. It seems just almost like a caring uncle or a father figure or an older brother. And this is the most tense between Avon and D'Angelo that we've seen.
Well, it gets to the point where D'Angelo's not even addressing Stringer anymore. He's talking directly. He's like, yo, Unc. Like, he, because he knows he's not going to get anywhere with Stringer. And I think that's an important moment, because I think that's, even though the relationship wasn't strong before, it was kind of a breakdown. I think that was kind of a breakdown between both of them.
Between D'Angelo and Avon?
Yeah, because I think from then, they're not even close to friendly ever again.
Yeah. Freeman is, or as D'Angelo leaves the office, he walks out. He's like fixated, tunnel vision, I guess, fixated.
Yeah.
And he doesn't even realize Chardine is right there, whom he was stalking last episode or two episodes or whatever. Right. And he doesn't even notice her. And she sees him, and she's very freaked out, probably not because of D'Angelo so much, but we find out that she's wearing a wire.
Well, what do you think from her reaction? Was she freaked out like, wow, he didn't even acknowledge me, that must mean something serious is going down? Or am I reading too much into it?
No, I don't think so. I think I took it more as, well, just the way that it played out in general, that she is so nervous about this. I mean, we saw her previously listening to the door with her ear to the door and kind of paying attention and trying to help pick out faces. But this seemed like a heightened sense of nervousness for Chardine that we haven't really seen. I think the presence of an actual wire in her hair has just kind of put her to a new level that she doesn't feel comfortable.
Yeah, I would agree.
So that's what's going on, is that she's wearing this wire, and Freeman is listening in the van, and we've got Perk and Sidnor, and they're bullshitting back and forth about, was it chili dogs? Is that what they were talking about?
Yeah, so they got some chili dogs, and they were arguing about who has the best in town.
And it's pissing Freeman off. He's got to tell them to shut up, but he's trying to listen, and all he's really getting are, these low-level guys that are in the dressing room of the dancers, and they're talking, and Avon's even got to come out. He tells them, you guys talk too much.
Table scraps, as he put it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, table scraps. So nothing really out of that. And Chardine, of course, eventually gets out of there and runs into Freeman's arms. Definitely looks to him for security.
Yeah. And it's another scary situation for Chardine, because she knows what these people are capable of, killing one of her friends.
Now she does, yeah. And really, Freeman's the only person that can help keep her away, because she's still working there, still associated. Technically, is the only one that can help clear her name or keep her free from prosecution.
Yeah.
So now we get the actual reveal of the security guard from the first episode as the witness. This was the security guard that flipped her story on the stand and said that she was mistaken in pointing out D'Angelo. And now we know that when they were talking about, when Stringer and Avon were talking about cleaning up and taking care of her, that's what they were talking about. Despite the fact they've paid off this witness, it's not good enough, and so they've killed her.
Yeah, just to make sure she can't talk. Yeah.
And Wallace comes home.
Yeah, Wallace comes home, and Poot gave him bus money, and he's back.
So we know, and it doesn't really get brought up again, but we know that Wallace said it on the wire, and Przybylewski totally missed it. And nobody knows this, and this is going to be a problem for the police, as they are going to now, because of finding this dead witness, it's going to spark in them that they need to be faster than the Barksdale crew. But here Wallace is home in the pit, and the cops don't know it right now.
Right, so they sent a cop all the way back to the house by the lake to find him.
And in the meantime, Wallace is telling D'Angelo, that he wants to come back. And Bodie's like, no way. And D'Angelo.
Well, Bodie wants to make him a lookout, right?
Right.
Now, do you think Wallace was going to take that offer? Because I think he was gonna. You think he just wanted to be down?
Yeah, I think he just wanted to be down.
Yeah.
Especially knowing what we know about what he's done. I think any way back in, he would be in.
You can still yell 5-0, right?
What's that?
Bodie.
Still yell 5-0.
Still yell 5-0, right?
And D'Angelo tells him, what about school? You know, you might want to do that. And he takes him on a walk, and he basically tells him, like, you've got to play this straight. You leaving stirred up some shit. And if anyone ever asks you, you got to look them in the eye and tell them that you're with this for life. No snitching. He's very specific about that. No snitching. And Wallace doesn't give up anything to D'Angelo as far as giving up his hand to let him know he has snitched. I don't know if it almost feels like Wallace feels like it doesn't matter that he already snitched.
I don't think in Wallace's mind he thinks, especially since which you find out later, that the cops missed the date for the grand jury because of Kimi getting shot. So in Wallace's mind, the cops didn't come when they said they were coming. They probably forgot all about him. So he's not even thinking about that anymore, I don't think. Even though we know as viewers he did inform.
Yeah. So when Wallace tells him straight up, like he kind of confirms again, like, this is me. This is where we get the quote. This is me, yo, right here. You know, these are the guys that he grew up with. And we get to finally meet D'Angelo's mom.
Yeah, that was the one thing. It felt a little tacked on. I was like, oh, she must have a reason for being introduced now. But interesting.
Well, and she does have another scene later on in the episode. So at least it wasn't a one-off.
No, it wasn't a one-off at all.
But again, of course, D'Angelo's mom and Avon's sister.
Right.
We get Burrell and Senator Davis with Daniels, and it's a little bit more rehash of what they were talking about earlier as far as not going any further, not doing anything more in this case, but it's very specific in this situation, and that Senator Davis wants to know or kind of look at Daniels and say, hey, what's going on with this investigation? You're looking at campaign finance. And he's almost trying to, I don't know, woo him or give him the old Clay Davis effect because he's playing very polite. And Daniels does not really give an inch. He's not subordinate, but he's not willing to accept kind of the cloak over the wool over the eyes or whatever the catch is saying.
At the point where he just kind of like drops a facade.
Yeah, Senator Davis says, he says basically to Burrell, says, you want to tell this motherfucker exactly what he's doing? And Daniel's explanation is very like black and white in that if you're not doing anything wrong, you don't have anything to worry about. And Senator Davis's answer is pretty much like, come on, what do you think? We're just taking money wherever because we need money to do this. He's not admitting to wrongdoing, but he's kind of admitting that he's willing to take money from anyone just to get what he needs done.
Right.
So I guess really though, Daniels does not accept this and walks out, which is probably the smartest move because I can't imagine anything that is said there could be used in court. So it's no point in hearing it. But Senator Davis tells Burrell that it's more than him that's involved in this, and that if this goes forward, you're going to be messing with a lot of different departments.
Yep, he mentioned the mayor. Yep, he mentioned a lot of people. So
we really got to learn how much bigger some of this can be. And this is what Freeman said, and Daniels was worried about. When you start following the money, you don't know where it's going to go.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk is a sergeant now.
He is happy as hell to get his stripes. Finally, been talking about these stripes all season. So
you see, he was number 18.
Yeah,
number 18. So he's extremely excited, and he talks about he's going to rub it in Carver's face when Carver gets back. I guess we'll have to find out what happens with Carver.
Yeah, what did he say? He was 36 or 32 or something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah. So
Daniels then gets the call that Wallace isn't at his grandmother's. So now they know that he's probably come back.
Yeah.
They've got to really, they're already searching, but they've got to really find him now, especially now that they found this dead security guard.
Yeah. So the race is on for Wallace.
And again, a step behind. No one, at no point in this episode did they ever put this together. Just Perez put it together, even though he's there for some of the conversation, that he took the bus home.
Yeah, I just feel like Perez is so disassociated from the actual characters who aren't drug dealing. And since Wallace has been out the game so long, like you could see in the later scenes, he's like, what about Weebay? What about, he's so invested in the active participants and the players that Wallace just went right over his head.
We get Stringer now meeting up with Bodie. And this is where I said it was very different than the first episode, from the first meeting earlier in the beginning of the season, because this is where he's kind of accepting, Stringer's kind of accepting Bodie. And, what's going on, man? And you built for this, and allowing Bodie to kind of build himself up when literally scenes ago he couldn't even bother to shake his hand. Now he's sitting with him in the back seat.
There's a lot going on here. I want your opinion. I mean, is Stringer straight up telling Bodie, find Wallace and kill him for me?
Yes.
I see, because I don't know about that. So you do think that? What makes you so sure? When he asks him, do you have a piece?
Yep. The way that it's so watching it with you, the thing that came to me was how little is said. And that's because he knew what he wanted to say. He builds him up, asks him about Wallace, sees that Bodie's not cool with Wallace. Unfortunately, seeing that D'Angelo is put his arm around Wallace is pissing Bodie off. So Stringer, seeing that, is able to draw a wedge and put Bodie in a position where, well, now you just admitted that Wallace is weak. You're not weak, right? He's not built for this. You're built for this, right? And what's Bodie going to say? Oh, yeah. Oh, okay. You ready to put in work?
That's real interesting because Bodie asked Wallace that same shit later on. So that's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I believe in that. I wasn't so sure because, like I alluded to earlier, in the scene with McNulty and with Daniels, when they come to Orlando's, Stringer seemed genuinely surprised that he's not getting arrested. So, yeah.
I don't think Stringer knew what they had on him. I think what they're reacting to in this situation, I think there's two separate things going on. The case that comes up with Avon and D'Angelo, but also just in general, the need to clean up everything that could be a problem. Wallace was as inconsequential as that security guard was.
Sure.
They weren't worried. Worried about news getting out or more information about Brandon getting out. They were as not worried about that as they were not worried about that witness changing her story again. It's just the idea of anyone is in play. So who can't they trust? This Wallace kid who they've heard has a problem mentally. The cops could get to that and expose him, not necessarily about Brandon, about anything going on.
Yeah, I disagree with that part, though. I think it's specifically because that ties in with Stringer, and that's why Stringer is so invested in that particular person. Like, I agree with everything you said about, the whole organization, but I think Stringer Wallace is significant because that ties Stringer to a murder, and that's the only thing that we've seen that ties directly to Stringer, you know what I mean?
That would require the cops to move on anything with that case, and they haven't touched anything related to Omar. Omar's not even around. So I don't think that is anything that they're worried about.
The case isn't about Omar. It's about, it would be about the murderer. It would be about...
But it's Brandon. Brandon that the case is. And I just don't think that the Omar case is in Stringer's world anymore. I don't think there's anything with Omar happening in his world to worry about.
Nah, I disagree 100% because that list, I think Wallace was on that list as he ties me to this murder of Brandon. Like, I think that's exactly why Stringer went to talk to Bodie when he saw that he couldn't get it through D'Angelo. He's like, this is a loose end for me specifically. I got to tie this up. Because I believe that based off of what you said. Like, you're like, yeah, he went to Bodie. He set him up like, this guy's weak. You're strong. Do your thing. So I don't know. I think it was intentional even more now after hearing that. And I think Stringer was very worried about Wallace fingering him because they saw each other face to face and had direct interaction. You know what I mean?
I think probably just in general, hearing that he's upset about the murder, he just doesn't want him to talk about the murder in general. They don't want another case on Weebay. They don't want a case on another case on Bird. Him. I don't.
The fact that Spring was in the car and was a part of that, I think it makes it a little more for him personally.
I guess what I think that Stringer isn't as concerned or doesn't know is he's not deciphering specifically what's tying him or Avon to any specific murder. I think he looks.
I don't think so, because I think he is.
I think they look at each. Because I think he's acting on behalf of Avon. I don't think he's doing this without Avon. I don't think like this is a situation where Avon.
I don't think they're exclusive. I think it all ties together. I don't think it's mutually exclusive, but yeah, I just think on that list he saw Wallace could tie us all, not just me, everybody in that car to this murder. So. Right. So that's why. But I'm glad you answered that because I wasn't sure if it was intentional. And let's get there to Bodie.
So we asked Bodie, "Are you built for this? Are you ready to put in work?" And he says, "Absolutely," or just says, "No doubt." And he asks, "Do you have heat?" And he signals to his waist as if he's already got it.
Yeah.
And he says, "All right, then, soldier," and sends Bodie off, and that's it. And right from there, Bodie kind of changes. Right, he starts wearing a skull cap over his head. He just gets a little bit darker, I guess. Brooding. Daniels and McNulty are now looking for Wallace. They're looking in the old vacant, but McNulty notices there's no power line going through, so they must have moved on to another building, which they did because Wallace is back to where, I guess, in the role that he was in prior to leaving. He's feeding the kids, taking care of them. They're eating Chinese food, him and Poot. And you can tell Poot is looking at Wallace, trying to figure. He still doesn't even know anything is happening, but he's looking at Wallace, trying to figure him out.
You think it's interesting Wallace takes in a new group of foster kids? Like, is that like...
I assumed it's the same kids. They've just moved to a new house.
Nah, he asked them their names and everything. He's like, what's your name? Oh, okay, this and whatever. So it's just a brand new group of kids that he's
I didn't even catch that detail.
Yeah, so that's why I thought it was really cool. I mean, it's showing how much of a, like, yeah, he may not be built for the streets, but he's still, like, really intelligent and really a strong leader, like, or father figure, whatever, nurture.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that. It's a good pull.
Yeah.
So the details, still looking for Wallace. They can't find him. They're getting word about maybe, like, he's got where his mom might be, something like that.
Yeah.
Bodie now fills Poot in on the plan with Stringer. And Poot is not really down for this.
Now, is this at the restaurant, right?
This is on the couch when it is in the pit when Bodie's basically telling Poot, "We got to do this because the man asked him to." And he said, Stringer asked him to, and he says, "We either step up or we step the fuck off."
Okay.
So yeah, I guess that even backs up even more so that he's very clear on what Stringer's asked him to do.
Yeah. That must have went over my head, that conversation. I missed that. Okay.
Rhonda shows Daniels and Freeman the money that her boss gave back, and they confirm that this is probably Avon's money. And she tells them, like, "Hey, this was scary as shit, and why didn't you guys tell me?" And Freeman says, "Aren't you glad that we didn't?" So I think also this shows that just seeing the kick that Daniels has got out of this, and combined with what he's already said to not only Burrell but the state senator, that he's all in now on this with Daniels.
Rogue. He doesn't care who. He's kind of the new McNulty, right? Because McNulty's kind of fall back from this now, and I feel like him and Rawls are trying to repair their relationship, or at least that's where I think they'd be going from what happened last week. So interesting.
Also inside the detail, Freeman is teaching Chardine how to walk, I guess like a foot with rope.
Paces, I guess, right?
Yeah, paces with rope tied to her feet, and everyone's just staring, which
just like, okay,
looks weird to Perlman, who's just kind of coming into this cold. But it's actually going to come into play for them to get this new wire inside of the club.
Right.
Bodie and Poot and Wallace now are having like a day together, and they're eating and sharing stories. And Wallace is reminiscing about his childhood and shares a story about his mom and always filling her drink with Bacardi.
Now, is this the chili dog place that Sidnor was talking about earlier in the episode? We got
to find that out.
Somebody to find out, because earlier Sidnor and Herc are talking about chili dogs, and the ones they had is not the best. There's this other spot, and now they're eating chili dogs. So I feel like the writers are too intentional for that not to be the different spot that they were referencing earlier. So,
and is this a real place? Are these like spots they're mentioning real Baltimore places?
Right. If I liked chili dogs, I would probably be excited to go find out, but I don't. So.
Too bad it's not a taco spot.
Yeah.
So these guys are kind of hanging together for the day, and it's almost like death row, like the last meal, it feels like.
Yeah, and I feel like this is Bodie trying to just give him a last chance. Almost like, if you want to talk about the last meal, man, this is like the Last Supper, and he's giving Judas a chance to come clean or confess or something, because he's just like he's really testing Wallace, Bodie.
Because he asks him, calls him out, and he says, talking about your mom or whatever, like you're a boy or a man. And I think, taking from what D'Angelo told Wallace, never look like you're wavering ever again. I thought he did a really good job in looking Bodie right in his eyes, Wallace did, and tells him, I'm a man. And Poot looks at Bodie, I thought almost like, I don't know, it doesn't look like he's snitching. Like, it looks like Poot at that moment believes Wallace, to me.
Poot maybe does, but Bodie's not buying it. And then the line about Wallace saying, you don't always got to be so mean all the time, whatever he said, I feel like
hard.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, knowing what Bodie has been assigned to do, it's not looking good. So,
Chardine is, so she's still measuring her paces in the detail. And I guess the deal is that they're going to get a camera actually inside of Orlando's in the club there. Now that nothing else has worked, everything they've done, and they still haven't gotten anything to Avon, I guess that's even more exhaustion. And that they're able to get a new wire now that they've tied the club to his illegal criminal activity. Wallace, Bodie, and Poot are continuing on here, and now they're in a vacant, and he's looking for the kids. And
this reinforce the kind of like, boy versus man thing, just him playing hide and go seek with the kids. It's really like reinforcing the conversation we just had a little bit.
And we've been talking about it all season, kind of the differences between Wallace and Bodie's frustration earlier in the season, throwing the bottle at Wallace for playing with the toy, and them being interested in girls, and Wallace not really talking about girls at all. This scene really brought all of that together into one for culmination for Wallace. So he's looking for the.
And so you remember when Dee was telling the story about shooting the girl?
Tap, tap, tap.
Yeah. At the end, without saying it, it's Bodie who doesn't understand. He's like, well, so what happened? And then Wallace automatically gets, he shot her. I don't know. Now that I'm thinking back to that scene, it's just like, it's funny that, I don't know. You would think Bodie would get that before Wallace almost. Not that Bodie's smarter than Wallace, but just Bodie's more hard than Wallace. You know what I mean? So...
And Bodie is the one that I come out of this questioning. They basically get into one of the rooms, and Wallace is looking for the kids, and there's no one around. Clearly, it's a setup. They've pulled the kids from the house, and Wallace turns around, and Bodie's got the gun, and he's very dressed up. He's got the Scully on top of his head now, and he's just staring him down, and Wallace loses it right away. Starts crying, starts peeing himself, and Bodie just starts dressing him down. Look at you, you're a little boy, stand up and be a man.
He's doing this to himself, though. He's trying to convince himself to pull the trigger.
Sounds like, yeah, very much so. And it's Poot who finally yells at him and says, do it if you're going to do it. And it almost startles Bodie. And
he couldn't finish the sentence. Either they were thinking the same thing, or it almost startles Bodie, like you said, yeah.
Because it's not a very good shot, and it doesn't kill. It's one shot, and it doesn't kill Wallace. And almost as if Poot needs to do this as well. It almost felt also, though, like Poot was just more prepared to do this mentally. And he takes the gun from Bodie and fires 2 more bullets, and it kills Wallace.
Yeah, I don't know if he was more mentally prepared, but I think part of him didn't want to see his friends sit there and suffer too. So it's like, don't sit here and fuck with him before you kill him. Just kill him, and then now he's here dying from that one shot. Just finish him off, man. And to your point, yes, I feel like he felt like he needed to be a part of it. It needed to be a decision they made together. So if just Bodie walked in there, shot him, and all Poot did was watch, it's not the same. But I think he wanted to feel the guilt of it together with him.
Mm-hmm. Especially the way that they shot it with him taking the gun from him, like hand to hand like that. It was very much sharing in this guilt, but I think also promotion. Together.
Promotion how?
They're stepping up.
Their first murder? Okay.
Yeah, they're blood in, blood out together type of shit. Stepping up for the Barksdale crew in this job that really Stringer asked Bodie to do.
Yeah, that's fair.
McNulty and Daniels are sadly still looking for Wallace. They still a step behind, still haven't caught up. And they find his mom, but she's drunk and she's going on. And it's sad just hearing a little bit earlier from Wallace. Now we're getting a little bit. We talked earlier about like the last episode about that Walking Dead style. When you start learning about characters, that's usually when they kill them off. That's what we thought they were doing with Kima. And here, that's basically what they're doing with Wallace. We're getting a little bit more and actually getting to see his mom drunk. And we know that he had been home at some point because he took $10 from her.
Right. So he probably stopped off there before he, went back to the pit or something.
Mm-hmm. Avon goes into his office now, and the detail have a camera and audio in there. In the middle of the night, Herc was able to install a camera in there. It was a mess of a job.
It's a Herc job.
Herc job. And so now they're listening. Freeman and Prez are listening, and Avon is packing the whole office up. And it's kind of funny talking about how they can't get the safe out of the office, how to get it in.
Call back to the table.
It's funny. Poot has a girl call 911 so that they can report an animal in the vacant to find Wallace, which, again, when we first saw them coming out of the vacant and we talked about what was on the door, and it said, if animal found, call this number, or if animal trapped, call this number. And that's exactly now how they're reporting the death of Wallace.
I'm glad you pointed that out because I had the imagery in my head and I couldn't remember where I saw it, but you're right. It's when we first see Wallace's home situation and him ushering all the kids out and they leave and that sign's left on the door. And man, that's some amazing writing. Some real symmetry there.
D'Angelo now meets Avon in the office, and this is where D'Angelo basically is asked to go to New York and make a run for a re-up. And Avon tells D'Angelo, I don't really have anybody I can trust. And D'Angelo pretty much tells Avon, he's very nervous, and he tells him, I've never really done that before. And Avon basically makes him do it. Now,
Avon never, I don't know, man. It was almost like, I know it wasn't literally, but it was almost like the door was still open as Avon telling him this. And it's like, I've never seen Avon, he was still being careful in the way he was talking, but it felt to me like he knew he was being listened to. I don't know. What do you think?
You thought that he knew he was?
Maybe not he knew he was, but I think let's keep going. I don't know. I don't know, man. Maybe I'm giving Avon too much intelligence. I don't know, man.
I didn't think he knew he was being listened to at all. I think if he was being listened to, he would never say anything in the office if he thought there was a bug in the office.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Which again, though,
maybe not that he was literally being listened to, but I think he had a feeling that D'Angelo was one of the weak links on that list beyond the fact of the murder that he beat.
What do you mean?
In terms of that, the police may be surveilling him.
Oh, this is why I say this is why I thought that Stringer didn't think so heavy into it. I don't think they understand the ins and outs of law so much. What charges, what evidence, that's what they have Levy for. And so I don't think that they understand so much. He just knows he can't do it. That, you know what I mean? Like they're definitely watching him, but I don't think he thinks obviously by how sloppy this plan is laid out, and this is what D'Angelo's mom's problem was this is such a sloppy plan. Why would he do this? He's going to we're going to rent you a car and you're going to take it up to New York for a half hour and come back with drugs in the trunk. Like, this is just a terrible, terrible, terrible plan. Mm-hmm. I think maybe goes to how little they understand about the legal system by thinking it will work, or by how distracted they are by all the problems going on in the crew in general, that they set up such a bad plan.
So you don't think it was an intentional setup to see who the weak link was, or
no.
who the snitch was, or who was vulnerable in the organization?
No, because this is the conversation that puts Avon in, this and nothing else. So I don't think Avon would have this conversation. I don't think Stringer would let Avon have this conversation if that was the plan.
Okay. Gotcha.
And and by seeing how Stringer reacted every time he showed up at the pit to pull out the payphones, to take everyone's beepers and to hand out the new cell phones and the instruction, I don't think they would ever talk. And also going back to the first episode when D'Angelo came home, the rule of don't talk in the car, no matter what, I don't think any of them would ever talk in the office if they ever thought there was a bug in the office.
Yeah, no, I don't think they think there's a bug in the office. I just think in their list of loose ends, D'Angelo's on there. And I think Avon said, let's send him on his run, see what happens. If the cops pick him up, we know that he's one of the weak links that we think he is.
No, I think because he's family, I don't think he would put him in that, not on purpose, ever put him in that crosshair, which again is what D'Angelo's mom's issue is. Why would you do this to family?
Yeah.
Bunk finds Wallace.
Yeah, Bunk's pretty upset about it.
Yep. Daniels, and like we were talking about before, now they're renting a car for D'Angelo, and already because Freeman and Prez are listening in, Daniels and McNulty and Sidnor, the whole team is there in the parking lot, and they're going to put the tracking device on this rental car. It's like a Taurus.
I almost have to remind myself. I'm like, yo, why is everybody here? Who's going to be on the roofs of the towers? But it's like, no, there's no more. The wires died. So
Sidnor, in I guess his last act on the detail, puts the tracker under the car, and they take off. And McNulty and Daniels are going to wait behind just to make sure, to wait for him to actually take off with the car. And that's when Daniels gets the call that they found Wallace, and Wallace is dead.
Yeah.
So McNulty and Daniels find out together.
Right.
Then we go into the detail, and Prez is grossly eating this rotisserie chicken on a newspaper and throws it out. And Freeman looks into the trash and sees on the corner of the paper this blurb about a redevelopment deal for Baltimore. And he pulls it out, starts looking at it. There's more to this that we find out. This comes into play with all the real estate that Avon's been buying.
Right.
McNulty and Daniels are waiting outside, and again, they make note of his clothes. I brought it up a couple times, but
he did, yeah.
They bring up that, and we even saw that scene earlier when he was changing his clothes like 6-7 different times when he was living with Chardine, and she said no man takes that long to get ready. I can assume it was another one of those type of scenes where he's got to get himself, I think Daniel says, boy had to get himself right. He had to get himself in the role of drug dealer here.
Mm.
And they confirm that he's in the car, and they say, we don't even have to follow him. Let's let the satellite do the work.
Yep.
And next thing we know, he's pulled over by the cops. And just so that he knows who it is, the detail pulls right up with him and is there so that he can see them get out of the car.
Yeah, they wanted that hands-on touch.
And the cops ask him, why did you drive to New York? We got you going through the tunnel and then coming back through a half hour later. Why did you drive to New York for 30 minutes? And that's the moment he knows he's done.
Mm-hmm.
So they pull over, so they bring him in to, I'm assuming, like a New York interrogation. And it's McNulty and Daniels that are going to go in the room with them. And all D'Angelo's saying is lawyer, lawyer, lawyer. And that's supposed to be the end of it, but they keep trying to talk to him and keep telling him, basically that it's not his fault, that someone else fucked up. but D'Angelo is going to be the one that has to pay the price. And given their history, you can't blame D'Angelo for not listening to McNulty. And he just keeps on with the lawyer, and nothing really works until McNulty tells him that they got Wallace.
Now, it's convenient that Wallace and D have this relationship that McNulty's able to exploit. But how do you think D'Angelo did under pressure?
I thought he did great.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it depends on what his objective is. And this is what Avon brings up later to his sister, but their expectation is that he stand tall for the group.
Right.
McNulty did a really good job of that, I thought, compared to every other time he's been in front of the cops. McNulty telling him that this really isn't your fault. This was a bad plan they sent you on, and you're going to end up eating the charge. In that case, he didn't do too much to help himself get out of that. But there may not be any getting out of it in reality. So on the way out, that's when McNulty tells him that they got Wallace, and he doesn't really flinch. He does say you're lying or something like that. He doesn't really believe him. And McNulty tells him, no, it's real. They got him. And while D'Angelo says, what, you want me to write a letter to his mom too?
Mm-hmm.
So we know that even though he's putting up a front between this and when he eventually meets up with Stringer and Levy, he's been thinking about this.
For sure.
So D'Angelo's mom now is with Avon, the brother and sister, and she's pissed at how sloppy this was, that Avon would put D'Angelo in this position. But Avon brings her to reality and saying, D'Angelo's going to have to do the time. He's going to have to own up to this. And when she asks what that means, he says, like, you like your house, you like where you're living, like the car, all the things we have. The only way that keeps going is for this operation to keep going and for D'Angelo to take the rap on this. And she says, my son's going to do his part. You just make sure you do yours.
Now, when she gave all those alternate suggestions about, why didn't you have him in a car with blah, 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 and all these other methods of, transporting the weight from New York back to Baltimore, A, my takeaway was she knows a lot about the game, clearly. But B, it's also, that's what made me think it was a setup. I'm like, okay, is this confirmation for me that Avon knows better than do such a plan like this? So it was a setup to get D'Angelo locked up or to see if he was being surveilled. That's, again, why I thought that based on her conversation.
Sure. I guess I took it more as just sloppiness.
Mm-hmm.
Sloppiness.
Avon doesn't strike me as sloppy. That's why. But, I mean, he's under pressure, so it makes sense.
And also because of just the trust or the gentleness that's existed between Avon and D'Angelo, that outside of the beginning of this episode where they had the very stern face-off about Wallace, outside of that, there wasn't much. So I guess I would want to see more from Avon to believe that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So Stringer and Levy are going to go to the jail to basically talk to D'Angelo because he's in New York. And so they're going to talk to him about the case. And D'Angelo doesn't want to talk to Stringer, doesn't want to talk to Levy. He's been thinking about what he said, and they're kind of giving him their line as far as, hey, we have a good chance to bring you home. And I think they must be talking about right now, not
probably bail money
for bail. And D'Angelo asked, but what about the weight in the car? Who's going to take the weight in the car? And this is what McNulty told him, right? Like, it wasn't him that messed up. And Stringer even asked, he questioned him, like, you sure about that?
Well, yeah, he says, who the fuck did then?
Right.
And I'm curious, too, who is McNulty implying messed up and who does D think messed up?
I think the idea that they set him up with a bad car, like what Avon's sister said, a trap car. They knew because they were listening the whole time. They sold him a car. You can't just put a tracker on a car. And I'm sure they didn't just get that in the last, get a warrant to put it on there in the last 2 hours. They wrote up an affidavit and got a warrant to put on that car prior to D'Angelo renting it.
Okay.
So just if I'm thinking it all out, the rental place rented him the car that they were allowed to put the tracker on because they knew which one it was. So the whole thing was set up by the detail and the feds who gave him the tracker.
Gotcha.
So Avon messed up, or Stringer messed up for allowing it to happen, but they ran a bad operation. It'd be like setting up a drug house in a wired building.
Right. It's not your fault. It's wired. I didn't pick the building.
Yeah. So that's where he starts giving them this attitude. D'Angelo starts saying, he starts talking about the weight in the car, and Stringer's not hearing it. And that's when he says, "Where's Wallace? Where's Wallace, String? String, where's Wallace?" And so have you ever heard this?
No, but I want that to, or it will be the title of this episode for sure, because, yeah, man, that's the line of the episode.
That's one of the most famous lines of the entire show is, "Where's Wallace, String? String, where's Wallace? Where's Wallace, String?" And he just starts ranting, "Where's Wallace?" And in the midst of the rant, he also says he does not want Levy representing.
True. So he's going to get his own lawyer.
Mm-hmm. And Stringer almost solidifies the break there and says, "All right, you stupid motherfucker." And he stands up, and D'Angelo gets pulled out, but D'Angelo's verbally, at least, seemed like he's done with the Barksdales.
I mean, he's not going to be done with his uncle, I don't think, but I think he's done with the organization and that hierarchy. Yeah.
Burrell calls Daniels to ask about the wire, and that's actually in Avon's office. This again now, another little subplot that's been going on here is that there's a mole in the detail from last episode, and this is how they were able to get the detail to give up the address to the stash house. Was somebody gave that information out as soon as Burrell let the detail know the plans. So now what they're realizing is that, or what Daniels has realized, is that Burrell's finding out about this wiretap in Avon's office after the fact. And he says, "I thought your little birdie told you everything." And this is where things get tense, and we get an answer to another question we've been wondering. Is Daniels dirty?
Did we get an answer though? I feel like I still don't know for sure.
Well, we at least know more. We know more information. Is that he's done some dirt.
Well, we know that FBI report that McNulty's buddy gave to Burrell, he didn't just sit on it. He's been holding it hostage as a piece of leverage.
Basically, Burrell wants to end this case with an arrest.
Yep.
Right now with this new drug charge, and Daniels is telling him that this is not strong enough. This is not going to get Avon down for a long time for killing the cops. And on top of that, with Wallace dead, they have zero connection to Stringer now. The Brandon murder isn't in play if Wallace isn't there to finger him.
Right.
And so they don't really have much of a case to completely go on and shut it down. However, Burrell's stance now is this is done. If you want to sit there with those two guys for the rest of the time, that's what you're doing. But you are done with this case, this detail. You're finished. And he says, "I'm not going to be done." And that's when Burrell pulls out the file. And so, yes, he's been holding this file that McNulty's buddy told us about many, many episodes about. And Daniel's answer to this is that my story is that there was a lot of dirt being done in the Eastern District. Mine ain't the only one. So what I take that to mean is that he did something. He definitely took some money, but he wasn't the only person. Because what Daniels then says is that he hits him with some zingers. And I was trying to write them down quick, and I got 3, I think, that he gave him. He said, "If you were going to do me, if you were going to do me, I'd already be done. And there's nothing you fear more than a bad headline. And you'd rather live in shit than let the world see you work a shovel."
I like that one.
And he hits him with all those. So that to me is him confirming that the info that he has and the idea that the FBI guy said was that he had more money than a staff lieutenant should, or something like that. And so Daniels, I think, definitely took money, but he's not the only person that did it. And I also think he doesn't do it anymore. I think when you go back to what Marla, his wife, was talking to him about when Daniel said McNulty asked what he has on me, and his wife asked, what did you say? And he just kind of looks up and shakes his head, almost like we said, what could I say? Because he did it. It's true. When you look at the reaction that Daniels had to Carver and Herc with the missing money, and his words were, "This doesn't happen, not in my unit," I think is a direct response to him making sure he never falls into that again. I don't think that this was Daniel's idea, whatever happened there. I think, though, that Daniels definitely took part in what a lot of people took part in at the time. And I think it's probably only Daniels' rank that makes him a target in this case of the FBI and this file. I think if he was just a regular old officer, no one would necessarily look into his finances.
I can see that for sure.
So that was I felt like something that, I don't know, I guess maybe it wasn't that clear so much so, and I'm kind of putting some finality to the storyline at least. So I don't know if that makes it clearer for you or if it was even confusing in the first place.
I mean, it was confusing, but I didn't know it was definitive. I didn't take it as definitive. Oh, okay, this guy's dirty. I took it as there's dirt on him, but there's also dirt on Burrell and some other of our higher ups. Yeah.
Well, I think also what we're seeing with the Senators, that there's dirt everywhere up the ladder.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's pretty much how they end that. So we go to Avon and Stringer, and they're waiting for their arrest in the office. The safe is open, and McNulty and Daniels are outside, and they're looking at the SWAT team and all the guys, and they're just commenting on just how extra the entire scene is.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, "Oh, fuck it, you and me." And they decide to go in there and make the arrest alone. And at this point, we don't really know who's being arrested. So they tell everyone to stand down. They knock on the door. The security guy comes out. The cops take him, and McNulty and Daniels walk up there into the office, and they look in the safe. They take a couple bags out, and Avon and Stringer turn around, and only Avon gets the cuffs.
Yep.
And Stringer's waiting, and he looks, and McNulty says, "Catch you later." And the look between Avon and Stringer is like, oh, that's different.
Yeah, that was interesting. Mm-hmm.
And Daniels takes Avon downstairs, and McNulty pauses at the top of the stairs and kind of turns back. And Daniels looks back up at the stairs and has to give him the "let's go."
What does he want to go back for? To get Stringer? Or I'm confused by that a little bit.
I think it's a representation of, and this is, they talk about this afterwards. Freeman and Sidnor really says this. I think it's just a representation of they're leaving something behind here in not being able to arrest Stringer.
Got it.
And it feels unsettled. It feels unfinished. I think
I'd love to see what the note is in the script right there. Like McNulty turns back with thoughts of blank in his head. Like I would love to know what that is. So.
Well, what were you thinking? Were you thinking you want to go kill him, or?
I don't know, man. I'm just like, I was just very intrigued by that interaction because, and now that you say that, that's exactly what it was. It's like McNulty's like, we can still do some more, and Daniels is like, we've done everything we could. Let's just go, Yeah, and really, I mean, you can see it in everyone's face. I mean, that is Stringer. Stringer looks like maybe he gets on his phone as soon as that happens, maybe to send out a text or whatever. But I mean, he's very surprised, and it's definitely a new wrinkle that they've got. I'm sure they've made some sort of plan as to what was to happen should they both get arrested. Now there's a new plan that they're gonna have to put in play. Right. Freeman is looking at this downtown rehab project. Now that is on the crime board. And that's when we kind of confirmed that this map that Przewalski has been making
it very much looks like the image that's on the newspaper as far as the area in Baltimore that's being redone with a $250 million budget or something like that. And it's starting to connect a little bit that there's money in these properties that they knew was coming prior to anyone else knowing. And that's why they were buying these vacants and storefronts.
Okay.
While they're doing that, they put the arrest tag on Avon, and that's when Sidnor gets the goodbye. And he tells them that this was the best case he ever worked on, but it's not finished.
Yeah, you can see he's really getting sentimental about having to leave it behind because of some of the best work he's done in his career. And I'll be honest, he didn't do much.
Come on, man. He played
with a couple of 40s. He tagged a car.
But he's
pictures.
He's added drug addict, homeless vagrant to his repertoire of characters.
That's true.
If he were an SNL cast member, dude, he would be set.
All right, fair enough.
And that's pretty much it. We get to see another shot of the empty couch in the pit.
It's a great shot. There's so much symbolism to that. You know, you got D locked up. Wallace is dead. Bodie's moved on. Bodie's a man now. Bodie's a boss, and so is Poot, really.
Bodie and Poot are off on their own here. Well, with the Avon, but off on their own without anyone under them.
Exactly.
Yeah. And we kind of laughed earlier about in a previous episode about Poot when D'Angelo has to go off to have lunch with Weebay and everyone. He said, Poot, you're the man for an hour. And Poot's standing on the couch like, shit, I'm the man now. Look at me. And now he is that guy, essentially.
Yeah. It felt like a season finale, the way they shot that couch and just bookended with that after, Wallace dying and Dee getting locked up. But it's not. We got one more episode after this.
We do. We have one more episode that will take place called Sentencing.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So I guess if we look at, again, Omar's out, so it's the streets and it's the cops. I'm going to say it. I think it's a draw.
It can't be a draw, man. Avon got arrested. That's a win for the cops. And I know they didn't get everything they wanted to, but look, they took out the stash. They arrested D and they arrested Avon. Like, the cops won, man. I got to give it to them.
All right. I guess I'm looking at it in that they didn't get Stringer.
True.
And seeing how much that really seemed to kill McNulty.
Yeah.
They got Wallace, a guy who I think was on the verge of helping deliver a knockout win for the police.
Killing Wallace was actually that's a good point. Maybe it is a draw, right? Because they're not in any real danger, right? Nothing's gonna like Avon's gonna get out and they don't have anything on him, right?
Well, they've got the wire in the office of him asking D'Angelo to make that run.
Oh, okay. So just because of that, it's the cops. Just because they have something on Avon. Again, you established it was not a setup. Avon didn't do that on purpose. Therefore, Avon didn't choose for D to get locked up to get him off the board. So yeah, you're right. I think it's the cops, but it's close.
We also got to remember D'Angelo now is out there as a guy who's kind of saying "fuck you" to Stringer and to Levy.
Yeah,
you got to wonder what he's going to do now.
Yeah, so so I think that's another reason why the Barksdale crew is kind of teetering right now. You got the head of the organization locked up, and you got a potential snitch in D. So it's tough.
All right. I give it 60-40 to the cops.
Yeah, 60-40 is cool. Yeah, because, they still got Wallace, and that was huge.
Yes. So, R.I.P. to Wallace. We lost Wallace.
Kima didn't die, so,
No Kima, really, other than she's still alive. We know. And so, McNulty has not. I thought that was pretty interesting that McNulty has not seen her yet.
Yeah.
Time. I'm assuming now a little bit of time has passed. But we really we got nothing this episode about her. We got really nothing about the case of Kima shooting, about Weebay
and Little Man. Well, we know
we just got the confirmation, right, that Little Man is dead and that they're predicting that Weebay is going to get killed. But we also are going to get arrested. But we do know that Weebay, last he said that he was going to Philadelphia.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And we really got nothing on Bubs. No Bubs in this episode.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Since the last we heard from him, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Where he was trying to get clean.
Yeah.
So, all right, this is it, man. The next episode, the sentencing, it's the season finale of season 1, and we're gonna find out what happens with everyone. Obviously, the sentencing, someone's doing some sort of time.
Right. So, is it D? Is it Avon? Is it both? I can't wait to watch it. I haven't watched it yet, so I will find out.
All right, that'll be first watch. Sorry, I stepped on you saying. You say it.
I mean, no, we could both say it.
No, you say
your
it.
First watch. My first watch.
My rewatch.
Right.
See you next time.
All right.